As you developed the SDGs, now there are many goals, and then there are many targets that will take us towards those goals. Can you tell us a little bit about how the whole scheme is structured?
So there's one group of SDGs which is all about individual people's well-being. Health, education, poverty, gender equality, hunger and nutrition, all of those kinds of things. Access to modern electricity, connectivity. Then there are a group of issues which are really issues about how development takes place at the country level. What's going to happen to cities? How are we going to get jobs? What's happening to inequality in the country? What about our institutions of governance, of justice? And then there are a series of things that really have to be implemented at the global level. Climate change is the most obvious one, but also oceans and desertification and reforestation and things that economists call the global commons. Many people have complained that this is just an agenda which is far too complicated. There are really two responses to that. First, development is actually a complicated thing. It's not something that can be solved with a handful of magic bullets. There is nothing on this agenda which isn't already being done in most countries. So it's not that the agenda is broadening what is already on the minds of governments and people in countries around the world. What it does is it tries to provide a framework that links many of these things to each other. You can't advance in one area if you don't also simultaneously advance in another area. It's very difficult to achieve good health, for example, if you don't also have good education and an understanding by families of how they can take care of their own health. It's very difficult to have good nutrition if you haven't also resolved the poverty problems. You can't resolve poverty problems if you don't have an improvement in agricultural yields and you've resolved hunger problems.
Let's say we develop this framework, and then let's say we have some institutions that will monitor how countries are doing on the SDG agenda. First of all, what are these institutions? Secondly, is this just a naming and shaming exercise at the end of the day, or are there other incentives built into it?
I certainly don't think it's a naming and shaming exercise. I think it's a learning exercise. So really the big advantage of having all countries trying to move on a common agenda is twofold. First of all, it allows countries to compare how they're doing to each other. And within a country, it provides a common framework so that one province can compare itself to another. Punjab can compare what it's doing to how Sindh is doing, and they've got a common framework so these comparisons can be done more easily. Second, it provides a framing so that those international institutions which have been set up in order to assist with development cooperation and support country efforts also organize themselves in the same way. So they're providing the technical expertise, the capacity building efforts, and the sharing of learning and knowledge, as well as financial resources to support this agenda. So it helps to organize institutions, it helps to make institutions accountable, and most importantly, I think it helps to make governments accountable, and make governments accountable to their own citizens.
Is there a mechanism within the structure of the SDG agenda that will promote more independent review of the SDGs and where countries or provinces have reached in achieving the SDGs?
You know, one of the innovations that's been introduced is something that's been called the data revolution. Actually, the data revolution was a term that we introduced in the high-level panel report. And it basically was put out as a way of saying, We know that we have administrative statistics that governments put out, and these are the official statistics, so, their work needs to be done. But in today's world, there's so much other information that's out there that's useful and valuable. And what the media can do, what civil society organizations can do, is to gather a lot of this information. Sometimes it might not be national, it might not even be at the provincial level, it might be in one district or in one school or, anything like that. But it's all additional information which is helping to verify and ground truth these official statistics.
How confident are you that the framework will now get many countries on the right track in this, along these multidimensional development objectives?
What I'm confident of is that this framing has generated an enormous amount of energy and has opened the development space from being the purview of a small group of people, usually in a planning ministry, and maybe one or two academics who would be an advisor, now to many, many more people, including young people who are taking a real interest in this is the future of my country. So we have a framework, we have the energy, we have the technology, we have the resources. It's all there. I think it's our best shot for being able to accomplish something.